Boruto episode 11, The Shadow of the Mastermind. This episode I think really picked up where the last episode kind of failed a little. I didn't really enjoy the last one too much because it really felt like a filler episode where everything the boys wanted to do, basically kind of failed because they weren't around when the ghost happened. And that kind of happened in this episode as well, a little bit, but then we get like a great bit of development by the end of the episode, so I think it really picked up, and we got some cool moments as well. But the beginning of the episode, of course, everyone's worried about the class rep, who I swear that's basically her name at this point, because nobody says her name outside of, I think it was the episode when the boys were going up against the girls. That was like the only time they really said her name, or when she had to stalk her. But it's always just the class rep, so that's like basically her name. But everyone's worried about her, and then Boruto comes in. He kind of blames himself because if they hadn't screwed up with the delivery, they probably would have had more time to patrol and probably could have found the ghost possessing the dude at the water purification plant. Naruto actually shows up, and they actually have a pretty good moment where, even though he dragged him by his ear, it led to like an actual moment of understanding where he's like, you know, this is what's happening. This is the guy that was at, you know, the water purification plant. Basically, he's dying. Like, they don't really go into the details, but of course his chakra is nearly 100% depleted, and he looks like, you know, it almost looks like he's insanely dehydrated, like his entire body just goes together like he's about to die. And they have a pretty decent moment where he's like, you know, you're just lucky with all these incidents that you guys weren't hurt. And I thought that was a good moment because it showed, of course, Naruto actually cares about his son, but they also have a moment of communication where, you know, in the last episode, they talk about how Naruto doesn't really know how to be a father to his son because he never had that experience, so he's always just kind of been like, you know, he was a troublemaker as a kid, so it's like, I don't know how to accurately be a father. Like, I've had father figures, but not truly my father in my life. So, you know, they have that moment in this episode where he does get to talk with his son, and he worries about him, and, you know, they even confront the fact that they're both kind of looking for the same thing, because Boruto pretty much comes out flat as he's, you know, as soon as Naruto comes up, it's like, you're looking for the ghost too, aren't you? And it was just, you know, out there. So, I like the fact that they actually talked about it, which was great. It didn't go super far, but they at least mentioned it, whereas like we both know now that we're kind of dealing with the same issue here. And they have a moment, of course, where Shino comes in and, you know, he's talking with Naruto and, you know, in front of the boys, and it's like, we have to kind of trust them. You know, they prove that sometimes, you know, children can prove sometimes that they can do better than the adults can if they're no longer treated like children. So I thought that was actually a really decent moment. And of course, when Naruto kind of hears that from Shino, he's like, you know, if you're so confident, then I'll leave it up to you, because of course he's his teacher, and he's like, you know, I'm capable of understanding what Boruto can and cannot do. So I thought that was actually a good moment, and it was kind of interesting because in one way it's like, oh, it kind of felt like they regressed a little bit because Naruto kind of left the fatherly stuff up to Shino, but at the same time, it does make a lot of sense with him being the Hokage and him not having that sort of figure in his life where he knows exactly what to say in those situations as a father. It makes sense that he would lean on the people that he truly trusts, and no better person than the person that does, you know, and this is just real life. Your teachers spend more time with your kids than you do, because odds are, you know, you have that little bit of time after school is like homework, maybe a little bit of TV, you eat, and then you go to sleep. And when you really kind of put all that together, how much time you truly spend with your parents when you're really going through school, most of the time you're really with your teacher. So they may not know you better, but you do technically spend more time with them. And in this case, it's way different. Like, the teachers and students are much closer in the Naruto universe than like anywhere I've ever seen in real life. But it made sense where he would lean on Shino, like, okay, if you really trust them to do this, then I will let you do this. But of course, Naruto's going to do his thing, which they kind of show in the promo where he and Shikamaru are still talking about how they're going to deal with this issue and basically, you know, save the whole village. But I like that moment. I thought it was pretty well done. Shino talks with the kids like, you know, even though I might trust you and, you know, believe that you can at least survive, it doesn't necessarily mean I want you to go out and look for danger and stuff. But I thought they did a great job during that sequence. And then we go into basically like the last chunk of the episode, which was just really well done. It's like, all right, well, every time that we go out on these routes, you know, something happens in like one of our blind spots, so we bring everybody in. We have every single route covered, so there are no blind spots. That ends up being a trap, and it was great. And they end up capturing the person. It does, at least based on the mask, I have to assume that Sai was definitely right in saying that it was probably someone from the Foundation, because that looked like an Anbu mask to me. Although it was super old and cracked, so it may have been someone who is related to someone within the Anbu Black Ops, and how maybe they hated that idea of people being manipulated, and that's why they're doing that. Because I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't someone from the Foundation, but it was someone related to them. It's like that person was, taken out of my life, and when they were brought back to me, they were like completely destroyed because of what the Abu Black Ops did to people, specifically what Danzo did to people, within the Foundation. So I thought that was a great idea, and we'll have to see where that goes, but I thought it was interesting, like the mask was cracked and stuff like that, so it's not like a new mask, it's, an old mask from back in the day, but it's either someone holding on to it or someone that had an attachment to someone that was within the organization, and they're kind of, either way, I feel like it's someone getting revenge for what happened to them. And they have a great moment with Sai when he's talking with Naruto, like, I want to, the reason I'm kind of overworking myself is because I really want to help whoever this is, if it truly is someone from the Foundation, because I don't want them to basically be forced to live within this warped mentality like I did. So I thought that was a great moment for him, and I'm excited to see them actually do that, because he's always been that weird character, like when he first showed up, and, he's had his backstory and stuff, in Shippuden, and they did a good job with that. Once it got, like, really serious, and they really dived into it outside of him just being really weird when he first came in. He actually has a really great backstory, and I always really found it intriguing. But I would love to see him as the person who's now fully adjusted with a child and, seemingly married and everything. I would love to see how his story kind of plays out as things continue. I would like to see that new version of Sai. I actually think that would be pretty interesting. But the kids all band together. They have a great plan, except for Iwabei. I love that scene when they actually capture the person. They do, they do their anime explanation where it's like, we knew that we'd get you here because we said that we put everyone on every single route, so the only blind spot would actually be here, which we knew you would attack. So that's why we came back, and it's going down the line as Boruto, and then Shikadai, and then Denki, and then it goes to Iwabei, and like you see him as everyone's explaining it, and he's like, ooh, and he's like sweating, and his eyes go like fully white. And then after it gets to Denki, when he completes it, and then Iwabei doesn't have to like add on to it, he's like, whew, thank God. Yep, that's pretty much all there is to it. And I thought that was so freaking funny, because I didn't notice it until like the very end, and then I rewound it, and I was like, oh, he's freaking out because they're going down the line explaining. And he's like, oh man, they're gonna come to me at the very end to like cap off the explanation, but then he finishes it, and he's like, whew, yep, that's pretty much it. And he was acting like super cool. But I thought that was a great little scene where it's like, you have to be looking at him, because it was really funny to me. I loved the way they did that part. Then we got some pretty cool action. I thought it was fairly decent. It wasn't like, huge spectacle, but fairly decent action. Of course, I'm assuming this was meant to be, once again, one of the references to the original, or well, Shippuden at least. But of course, with the guy basically being infused with chakra and stuff like that, which is something they referenced that hasn't happened before, where they mention like the guy who's being taken over is like, oh, he can't handle that sort of chakra and stuff like that, and using those moves. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Like, he has abilities that he wouldn't have, because he wasn't trained as a ninja to like use his chakra and stuff. So it was almost like he was infused with someone else's abilities. So I don't know if that's truly going to come into play, but they do reference like, oh, he can't handle, using that sort of chakra and stuff like that, because he's not a trained ninja. But they do have him like, using letters and stuff. So it was, of course, it was like, I think of Conan. So I was like, all right, I thought that was cool. Also, a reference once again, but it was still a fairly decent action sequence. They're fighting and, trying to stop him, and ultimately in the end, they have a pretty cool moment with Iwabei and Boruto where, once again, and I just love seeing this in general because we don't see it, very often, but when they punch him, Iwabei just does a fist, but of course Boruto does the gentle fist, and I thought that was awesome. Like, every time I see him do that, I'm just like, that just looks so cool to me that we have a main character that uses the gentle fist style. So I just really like that little moment, but in general, I thought it was pretty decent. Then, of course, we have the kids who actually capture this mysterious person, and of course they fail. He's way too skilled for them. Lee was close, or Metal, he was close to getting him because he's like the fastest person. And he tries to get him, but of course he jumps onto the water and takes off. So it's like, oh, and even Gene mentions it. It was like, oh, well, we can't walk on water yet, so I guess that's pretty much it. Then they show the person in the sewer, and Mitsuki's there. And he just stands there, and it's just like, they look at each other, and then the dude just backs into shadow and disappears, and Iwabei, like, he doesn't really smirk or anything, he's just kind of looking at him, and it's like, okay. And it seems like he understands what's happening. I personally don't think he's involved, but that's solely based on the one-shot manga that they made before the series actually came out. And it was like the reason he's even in the village, so I'm like, I highly doubt he's even remotely involved in this. But of course, with his background and stuff, which I'm sure they'll officially get into, it's easy to make him seem really suspicious, especially with him being like a brand new character and stuff. But if you read like the one-shot manga they did, I have like no worries whatsoever that he's even closely related to, you know, whoever this villain is. It would just seem like it because he's, you know, kind of hiding things and because he understands certain stuff, like the fact that he can walk on water. And, you know, they show up before when he like, first shows up, he has like a million different abilities and he's as young as everyone else, but he's been trained way, way harder than anyone else. So it was pretty interesting. I like the way they ended it. You know, it adds to that mystery, but, you know, it depends on if you read the manga or not. It's like, obviously, he's not involved in this, so it doesn't really add to it there. But it still adds something to it, because it's like, you know, if he wanted to truly help, he could have, but he's still kind of just waiting to see what happens and what the other characters do. So it still adds a bit of mystery there. It was like, you know, why not just help out if you could? But he's just kind of waiting and seeing. And I'm sure we'll get an explanation as to why he's waiting for everyone else to do stuff around him rather than doing it himself. But I feel like we saw that a little bit in the episode where Shino was taking over. And it was like Mitsuki was the one who should have done it, but Boruto was like, no, I'll do it because I don't want anyone to get hurt and stuff like that. And Mitsuki had a little reflective moment, like, interesting, like, I actually appreciate this type of person, and like, I really know that I can be attached to this person because he's an okay person. So I feel like that's what he's doing. He's still waiting for everyone else to prove that they're okay human beings, I guess, around him. But I like the little moment. It adds a little mystery, depending on whether or not you read the manga, like I said. But ultimately, pretty good episode. I think it really picked up on some of the shortcomings, pretty much all the shortcomings of the last episode, because my main issue was that nothing happened. Like, they went on their mission, and everything related to the ghost, they got there too late, so we never really saw anything. The only thing that really came of it was that Sai was involved, and, you know, they talk about the foundation some more, but that's really it. And like, there's really nothing much to it. And this, I feel like they really picked it up, and it was like, we get to see this person even if we don't find out who it is. We at least have the physical embodiment. We see the mask, so, you know, that's another element where it's like, okay, at least based on what I'm seeing, I would say Sai is correct in his theory that it's involved with the foundation. So it does answer some questions, possibly, because of course they could be like, yeah, I just had this old mask and it just happens to seem like an Ambu mask. It didn't have the colors. It was like a rabbit mask, but it was just an all-white mask, and normally they have like some little color design, but ultimately it's a mask that hides the person's face, so yeah, it doesn't need to have colors on it. I would believe it's the foundation. But that was a really good episode. They hint a little bit towards the Clash rep and her lifestyle and stuff. I would imagine, based on this episode, that she may or may not be an orphan, because the other girls, their parents show up, and it's like, you know, you go ahead, and she looks out the window at them kind of longingly, and I'm like, okay, so it's not that her parents showed up late. Maybe she doesn't have parents, and that was, you know, something that they might touch on. It seems like that's something they'll touch on, because she's in the promo as well for the next episode, and there's a part where like Mitsuki's talking to her, so I think they're going to be able to bond a little over the fact that they don't really have that true parental sort of figure. So I'm excited to see where that goes, actually. You know, they kind of just make her a character. It seems like they're trying to make her more important than she really is, because she's not even in the manga, as far as I've read. I'm sure she's shown up by now, but she's not even in the first parts of the manga, so it's like they're trying to make her more important. It's just like Denki and Iwabe and stuff like that. Like, they don't show up there, but they're kind of trying to make her more important, but at the same time, they don't really give her a bunch. So I feel like we might see more of her in the next episode, and hopefully we don't see too much of it, because I feel like if we go the orphan route, that's literally what the original series is based on. Is like, we don't need a side story of how an orphan is, you know, it sucks for her to be an orphan. Like, that's like literally how the show began. And there are quite a few characters that are orphans in this show that are main characters, or at least, you know, former shows. So we definitely don't need that in this one. If I'm being totally honest, I just don't feel like we need to see that a third time. Also, and it depends on how she changed over time, but of course with her being a new character for the anime, it's like, how important is she truly going to be anyway? Like, why should we truly even care if she's an orphan? But I feel like with her talking to Mitsuki, it could at least lead to some good dialogue, so I am still looking forward to that. But of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, or least favorite parts. And I definitely want to know how you guys felt about the ending of this episode, actually getting to see who's controlling the ghost. The crazy little teaser that they had where like a part of the symbol fills in a little more. We have like this mysterious deep voice, and it looks like, at first I thought it was going to be, which I thought was insane, because it sounded like the voice actor for the third Hokage, but I was like, that looks like the monkey, and I was like, this isn't going to be some crazy thing where the Hokage is like released and his soul comes back. Like, that would be insane. But then I realized the image that we were seeing wasn't his monkey summon. It was actually like it was a white tiger that had like a giant tuft, so it was almost like a white tiger mixed with the lion a little bit. So that had me interested. I'm excited to see who this creature belongs to. It seems, I would assume that that's the creature that's talking, and so maybe the person that, you know, utilizes this dark chakra ghost, maybe they're trying to make like this insanely dark summon or something like that, and there's some crazy spell that binds this person to, you know, whatever realm they're in. If it's like, you know, the tiger, lion realm, you know, the snakes have their place, the toads have their place. So maybe they're bound there because all of them are evil or something like that. Like a whole land of like all the summons are evil. I think that would be an interesting storyline. So I would love to see that, but it involves some sort of summon and some crazy tiger, lion, you know, creature sort of mix, which I'm excited to see. But I thought it was a nice little tease at the end, sort of showing off what other villains might come. Because we have a character who's already fairly powerful and at least, you know, stronger than the kid, so I can't say fairly powerful, but it's just fast and, you know, has this fairly dark chakra and this intense ability. And then we have another character that's, you know, just referenced at the end of this episode. So I'm looking forward to what we get from that, even though it might take a minute for some real answers and real reveals, and we see like full designs and stuff. But we'd love to know where, you know, where you guys think that's headed, and like I said, what you guys thought about them finally showing at least a physical embodiment of who's controlling this spirit, and what that may or may not answer as far as size connection to the foundation and all those theories. And of course, want to know what you guys thought about this whole episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.